Welcome, Season Sixers. As always, thank you for being part of our Color of Success podcast family. I'm your favorite host, Dr. Stephanie J. Wong. Keep your eyes peeled for my brand new book coming out. It's called Cancel the Filter, where I share my experiences in the realm of mental health, both professionally and personally. Subscribe to colorsuccesspodcast.com to be on our waiting list. Seats are limited and being filled as we speak. We're also streaming on all your favorite platforms and socials. Whether you're on the go or comfy on the couch, you can tune in at your own comfort. As you know, we love growing discussions with our guests from our AAPI and minority communities. With so many friends and experts from different aspects of life, we love learning their stories and understanding what their success means to them. Let's get into it. Matchmaker Cassindy Chao is the founder of Ancient Wisdom, Modern Love. A former Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Equities research analyst and happily married mother of three, she caught the matchmaking bug in college, matching dozens of couples at the Wellesley College Asian Association Blind Date Semi-Formal. Now, she's an expert matchmaker helping people find true love. Cassindy, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I'm so grateful that we connected.
I'm so happy to have connected with you too. And I love your message. I mean, I'm such a fan. I'm so excited to be on your show. So thank you very much.
Well, we've talked a little bit before the interview, but I was so interested because you are a matchmaker. And so I'm hoping that you could first talk about your journey to become a matchmaker, because in my mind, it's not a common career path. And particularly in the AAPI community, I have not met one before. So,
no parent says, oh, my daughter's going to be a matchmaker. It was so random. I was at college and I was at a party, and then I got set up on a blind date, and I'm thinking, I want to run this. So there was a party called the Asian Association Blind Date Semi-Formal, and I volunteered to run it the next year. And we had over 100 couples, and I matched them, and I had so much fun. And ever since then, I wondered, could this be a career? And of course, no, we should be high performing, went into banking with Goldman, JP Morgan, the whole thing. But I always wanted to come back to it. And over the years, I let go of expectations and leaned into it. And I do what I really love doing. I trained with one of the best matchmakers in the industry, and I trained with 17 other matchmakers around the world. And basically, I've decided to make a career out of it. And I'm on the Matchmakers Alliance. I love it. I'm
there's
never
a
looking
matchmaking
back.
alliance. That's amazing.
There is, and I'm on the welcome committee.
Well, you're perfect for the welcome committee. I feel like your enthusiasm would just really bring people in. Before we jump into the art and science of matchmaking from your perspective, what was it like going from banking to matchmaking? Because I imagine that the environments are a little bit different.
So being an Asian American back in the early 90s in investment banking was really hard. I think I was a token hire in my investment banking class for sure. And it was awful, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it through. But it was always under duress. I always kind of forced myself to do it. I'm not that good with numbers, but people must have thought that I was good. I'm really not good. But I forced myself for years to just do enough. And I did okay, but I never thrived. It was never like, oh, I love seeing how the financial model is playing out. Now, I really struggled. I did not like it at all, but I made it work out just because that's what I thought I had to do. So, for me, matchmaking was an escape, but I didn't, as an Asian American, oh, can you make a living out of it? And, I didn't know, but I knew that I was really unhappy. And I knew that I was honestly a lousy financial person, a lousy CFO. I would never hire myself as a CFO because I'm just terrible with numbers.
Oh my. That would definitely impact, if I were in your position, my mental health. I'd just be like, I don't really think I'm a good fit for this, and I'm here. So that must have been tough.
Stephanie, you hit the nail on the head. it was really tough. I would tremble before meetings. I would feel like an imposter. I would just force myself to memorize things so I could, be okay in meetings, but I hated it. In the last few years, I dreaded financial meetings. I dreaded them. And even after that, I'd already been doing finance for, over a decade. I still dreaded it. Ugh.
So, yeah, I mean, that summed it up, right? That's a clinical verbal response. So,
Very visceral.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move into a more happy part of your career and your life. So matchmaking, can you tell me what goes into it? I know it's very tailored, obviously, to different clients, but what goes into it and how is it different than all these apps that are out there?
Oh, well, matchmaking is like problem solving. And I love puzzles. And I think everybody is a puzzle. And I try to understand what makes them tick, what stopped them from finding love, you know, who, just because it's what they want, is it who they really need? And I just try to understand a person. It's like a puzzle. Um, I think online dating is a challenge for a lot of people because think about it. Whoever says, I can't wait to go online dating. So already, right?
I mean,
So
unless
people,
you have other intentions, yeah.
yes, that's true. But people don't come into online dating excited, right? As a matchmaker, my goal is to curate a set of dates and kind of take away that first date issue. So that way it's already a second date. So my clients come into it thinking, ooh, I wonder what my matchmaker has for me. So it's a much more positive experience. And I can also kind of nudge some of my clients to kind of go, hey, I know you really wanted these three characteristics, but maybe would you give a shot to this guy who, you know, maybe have less hair than you had wanted, but boy, is that guy funny, and he plays a mean game of squash, right? And kind of give it a try, right? And it's fun.
So I haven't been on a first date in over 20 years. I mean, I married my high school sweetheart, but
Ah,
yeah, that was before apps were a thing, by the way. But, I guess I'm wondering if a client walks in, how does the process work? Because I think similar to clinical interviewing, to make someone feel comfortable to tell you about their expectations and maybe hangups or what their barriers are to actually connecting with people, that takes some time and and energy to build that rapport with somebody.
you know, Stephanie, again, you this is obviously your expertise is working with people and getting them to open up. So with matchmaking, those first dates are so magical and so important. So as a matchmaker, I want to make sure that that first date really works. And that's tricky, right? Because if they're not receptive, it's just you get two great people that are just
Yes.
not going to go through. So I'll give you an example. So it's tailored per person or per client. So I had a very strong career woman and a guy, and I was thinking, how do I get them to connect? Because the one guy is very artistic and very smart. So what I did was instead of just saying, meet at this restaurant, talk about these three things, I actually had each of them take pictures and I gave them a homework assignment. Asian Americans were such good achievers. And I had them take a picture of what does water mean to you, or take a picture of a food item that you don't like. And so it took away a lot of the stress of, career and accomplishments, divorce, whatever. And instead, so they were by the time we did 5 assignments, they were very excited to meet each other and they were already texting, oh, why'd you do this? So things like that, right, is really important to kind of get the mood in for the first date. So the earlier part of your question was about how do I have my clients open up and be receptive? Yeah, and that takes time, right? I have to earn their trust. And I think part of it starts with listening to them, remembering small things about them. It's not just listening, and I take copious notes. And, over time, I feel that we can kind of unlock and open up things. And I think the reality is there's no judgment. Who am I to judge? I've led an imperfect life and I'm a goofball and I love it. And I want people to feel safe to be whoever they are and whatever they want to be. And I don't judge because otherwise I can't learn what's a good person to match them with if I don't have their trust.
Well, that brings me to a question, right? If people are open and amenable, very easy to work with. Let's just say someone comes in with like a checkbox list, which, people do. I have heard, oh, I want this kind of look, or this kind of job, this kind of salary, and all those kinds of things. You wrote a book, I want to get the title right. Ancient Wisdom, Modern Love, Chinese Wisdom for Dating Success. How do you apply those principles to folks that come in that way?
Oh, it's hard because people come in with the box of what they want. A lot of women would say they has to be earn money, has to be smart. I want to be learning from them, all these factors that we call like a unicorn, right? And yet the unicorns may not be interested in them. So sometimes it's important to expand the horizons, right? So I have a phrase in my book. I say "井底之蛙," which is a frog in the well, right? How can you see if you're just sitting there in your well and you're only you're only seeing a small piece of the sky, right? It's really important to be more open, and it's easier said than done. So sometimes I might try out different dates for them and they can kind of see, like, oh, wow, that guy, you told me he wasn't the hottest guy, but oh boy, he made me feel so good about myself. Or, so different things we just have to sometimes you kind of try and you kind of experiment. And sometimes it depends on how they accept guidance, or how they accept. Sometimes they have to see it for themselves. Fine. Sometimes they're willing to listen to it. Sometimes they want to hear stories about what worked, what didn't work. So it really depends.
So, there are many folks that are family oriented. And are there any ways that you incorporate family into the matchmaking situation? What are there any examples without giving away people's personal information?
Family is so important. It's one of the questions I always ask, especially with my Asian American clients. I ask a lot about their parents' relationship. Um, and I also ask about, behavioral questions, how their parents fought, how they fight, or how they handle conflicts. Because I think that, and this is, again, I'm not a professional, therapist like yourself, but I feel like in my work, I see a lot of themes that come up again and again, right? And it seems that, there's certain themes that get carried down, right? Let's just say a very controlling parent might lead to anxiety in the daughter, and the daughter might also have certain control issues as well that get carried down. Or you have parents who were together yet really kind of should have been not together because they really weren't, but they were just held together because of, Asian, certain restrictions, but they really were not compatible. But that also impacted the kids. So I ask a lot because it's really important, because that helps me to understand better how to match them.
Well, and it helps the folks to actually look at the context in which they're approaching relationships, right? And it allows them to kind of reflect on themselves, like, oh, this is maybe why I'm presenting this way, or maybe some of my relationships haven't worked out because of XYZ. A lot of people say communication issues, but that, as we both know, is very, very complicated. It's just kind of like, do you know how to show appreciation? How do you like to be loved? What are ways that you accept feedback? There are all these nuances of communication that, again, even over 20 years, you still learn new things about each other. You still have to amend the way that you fight, the way that you define love, etc. Right? So, now, do folks ever come back to you after maybe they've matched and kind of share their stories or things that they can also work on? I know you're not, working in the context of therapy, but are there any ways or situations where you've had to kind of intervene and push them forward and encourage them a little bit?
I have a funny story for you. Yes, absolutely. So even though I might have finished, let's say, a 6-month or 9-month program with a client, I still stay in touch just to see how things are going. If, like if the goal is marriage, I always it takes longer, right, to get engaged and married. So I had a client who was a doctor and very controlling, right? But just because it's part of her career. And the wonderful guy, they're now meeting, they're dating, and he really wanted to go house hunting together. And she's like, oh, no, we're not going to do that. And I'll say, look, maybe there's a reason, right? And so there's all these blind spots. So yes, I totally stay in touch with them because it's like I'm a problem solver, but I also want my clients to be successful, right? I want, I don't want them to take all my hard work and not make it happen. So I'll nudge you, like, I think you should go on that house hunting trip with this nice guy, and they're now married, which is great. But, of course, I totally stay in touch. I totally try to continue on. And, I'll kind of nudge a little bit, like, maybe you could let go a little bit. Maybe, the other person will feel a little more empowered if you don't have to control that aspect. You might have to control it in your work life, but you don't have to control it in your home life. Right.
Absolutely.
And I love it when people come to me and say, I'm also in therapy, because to me, that's a sign of self-awareness or an approach towards self-awareness. It's so much easier to match people who have done some work.
What have you learned about yourself throughout this process of matchmaking and helping people kind of achieve their goals and connect with other people?
Oh, Stephanie, I've learned so much from every client I've worked with and almost even any screening interview. I learned so much from everybody that I interact with, which is why I love this job. I've learned to not be judgmental. I've also learned to be kinder to myself. I've also learned to be a better parent, or to be a parent that is, I guess I would say, empowering of my kids as well, because I see the damage that can be done when people come to me sad.
How do we approach our children in this current climate about dating? Because it's, more so trends of like, there are different situational, contextual factors that our kids will face. I mean, I don't know the statuses of your kids, but my kids are younger. So, daughters just obviously scared for them in general, right? Like, what are some things that we can kind of impart on our children when they are ready to find a partner?
Oh, again, great question. So it is really important. I've learned so much, and it helps me to think about how I guide my own children in their own journey. And so part of it is just obviously being very open-minded and letting nothing phase you. Like my daughter had said to me, I'm coming out. And I'm like, great. Let's celebrate this, right? You're open with your sexuality. Then it turns out she says, I'm asexual. Okay, fine. Great. And my daughter's on the spectrum. So she's, so it's different. My son, he wasn't a confident dater growing up. And I think, again, it was really hard in the beginning. There's, it's also hard in the hierarchy, right? Because you're multiracial or racial, there's pecking orders in elementary school. But I think letting go and just kind of being a friend and being there, he's really come into himself, right? And and that's fun to watch. The funny thing was, my middle son actually read all my matchmaking training books when I was learning how to be a matchmaker. I caught him in middle school under the covers with 3 of my books that my trainer had given me. What was it? How to Have Met Hello, Why Him, Why Her. He's reading these books. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing.
I mean, the curiosity is there, right? I mean, back in the day, it used to be like Playboy. So let's be thankful that, there's a different theoretical knowledge there. But I think, that's the thought, is like, the other part is each kid is different, and that's okay. And just like with your clients, you're kind of tailoring your approach to talking with them. But what you're saying is the theme of acceptance and giving them space to be themselves.
Yeah, and what I love is sometimes they'll share little tidbits with me, and of course as a mother, I'm like, "Ooh, tell me more." But I know that they know, Mom, I'm not gonna tell you. I'm like, okay, fine, and I get that. But every now and then they'll like let something out, and I'm like, and it's like a little tidbit, and I get so excited. Like I'm just happy for them, and I want them to find somebody who loves them unconditionally. I think that's the thing, is we all need to feel safe, right?
Absolutely. Well, how do you take care of your mental health as you work with so many people? Interacting with people can be exhausting, and sometimes our empathy and patience can be on low at the end of the day. So, what do you do to maintain your mental health and your energy to do the work that you do?
Oh, it's hard. Sometimes it's really hard because I think sometimes people who are single can get a little agitated and, want, a date now, right? And sometimes a date doesn't come just now. And so it is hard because I am a people pleaser. I know that. And I have to talk to myself that sometimes they're just going to have to wait. It will come. Um, it is tricky. I also have a pretty hard and fast rule that I do not take on angry clients. If somebody comes to me and they're angry and they're mad, and if I feel like it's toxic, then I just, I turn them away. I don't have enough time. And it also impacts my ability to work with my other clients if they're being abusive or berating me or,
Mm,
mocking my abilities as a matchmaker. And frankly, I'm an Asian American matchmaker. There's, there's not like 50 Asian American matchmakers out there, right? And so I have pride in my skills. I have pride in my care and understanding of my community. So, I need to value myself too and go, look, I have boundaries. But I'm learning. I still have issues every now and then.
well, who doesn't?
Trust me, I do.
Well, like I mentioned, I think part of it is there's some more complicated behaviors that really need to be addressed sometimes before people are going into these relationship finding situations. And so I think that that is a good boundary in terms of directing them to the resources that may be more relevant at that moment. The so you mentioned kind of you're in a niche, and so how do you tip aside from like sharing the information, how do you typically find your clients?
So with my clients right now, it's most of it's referral. Basically, happy clients will refer them. Also, I've written a lot. I've written a book, and it's starting to kind of let people know that there is an Asian American matchmaker with this understanding and expertise. And I found that things are really blossoming. Like I feel like this year versus last year, exponential level of interest. And it's been great. I really enjoy this for sure.
And where can people learn more about you and
Um,
for your services?
so I have a website, www.awmlove.com, which stands for Ancient Wisdom Modern Love. And basically, everybody can join my database for free because I always bring in good people and I can always match them. And on there, I also talk about, date coaching and matchmaking.
Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today on a Friday. I so appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you too. Thank you so much. And I love your wisdom. And I am so delighted and honored to be on your show. Thank you.
I am so excited to announce that my book, Cancel the Filter: Realities of a Psychologist, Podcaster, and Working Mother of Color, is now available on Amazon through Kindle or a paperback copy. So get yours today. The link is in the description.